Presented by Syntax Advisors.
Welcome to ETF TV News, a weekly show that provides insights for institutional investors and financial advisors on global trends in the ETF industry in the prior week. I'm Debbie Fuhr. Joining me today is Steve Hawkins, President and CEO of Horizons ETFs in Canada. Welcome, Steve.
Deb, thanks very much for having me here today.
So last week you launched an S&P Green Bond ETF. Can you tell us about that product?
Yeah, Deb, we're very excited about HGGB. It's the first true green bond ETF here in Canada, investing into clean transportation, renewable energy, pollution cleanup. These are all exciting fields. There's more and more green bonds being issued on a global basis from a developed markets and emerging markets perspective. And this ETF is really going to cover the gamut of all of the green bond investing overall. And again, this is a first of its kind here in Canada. So we're excited to see how investors will really react to a new product like this.
What type of investors do you expect to be using this ETF, and how do you see them using it?
So we really structured this ETF for the self-directed and retail advisor out there and the end client who is conscious about how they want their money spent at the end of the day. And they're talking to their financial advisor and saying, I think I want to invest more into green initiatives, ESG type mandates per se. And it's really the investor that is now thinking about how they want to spend their money. Are they looking forward to a better world for their children and for their grandchildren? So it's an exciting time for the ESG space specifically. This is a new product which doesn't exist in Canada, and all of the money is geared specifically towards green initiatives. So it's the client that really can think about, hey, what's going to happen to this world, to this environment over the next 10, 20, 50 years.
We know that Europe has really embraced ESG. About 53% of all the assets in ESG products are in European products. How do you see the demand for ESG investments in Canada shaping up?
Canada's way behind Europe. And, I think we've recognized that for a while. And I guess the US is even farther behind Canada from a money going into the ESG space perspective. Right now, the Canadian ESG SRI space is really driven by the institutional marketplace. They're the ones who've been putting all of the dollars into these types of things, but they've been doing it themselves. They don't use ETFs per se for this type of mandate. We see that potentially changing a little bit over time here. But right now in Canada, it's maybe 10% of what you're seeing from a European investor perspective. And then we see it as even in the US is even worse as 5%. There's a lot of ESG and SRI products available now here in Canada. And I think, Europe has been a leader for a long time when it comes to the space. And that will trickle down, hopefully at some point, and become a waterfall with respect to more money having to be invested into the ESG space here in Canada.
From your perspective, what are the things that you're looking at in terms of launching new products or other trends for the rest of the year?
2020 was such an unusual year. There was so many different things that happened. The tech craze went nuts. We saw thematic ETFs just take off in the US completely. And the Canadian market is, lagging from the US in that perspective. But we see very niche types of products as a necessity to this marketplace. And the market is getting sliced and diced more and more every single day. We've launched 8 products already this year. We probably have at least 10 to 15 more that we'll be launching. And I would say they're all going to be very, very focused from a sector theme type of mandate. We've already filed a prospectus for a lithium product, which doesn't exist here in Canada, a hydrogen product, which doesn't exist here in Canada, and semiconductors. And those are all 3 very big themes that we've seen a lot of money going into in the US, but really haven't touched the Canadian market at all. So those will be our next 3 projects. And then right after that, we have another series of thematic products. But you can't forget about income. Canadian investors find income in all different spots. So we're going to be coming to market with some income products as well. And that's one of the reasons why we're happy with the global green bond ETF. So it kills several birds with one stone. One, the first of its kind from a true green bond perspective, and still gives them the income at the end of the day that they'll be looking for.
Thank you, Steve, for joining us and sharing that update.
Deb, always a pleasure.
Last week, we had 20 new listings from 16 issuers on 9 exchanges. When we look at the products that came to market, there were 14 in Asia. Korea had 7 leverage and inverse ETNs. ESG was the one product in Australia. In China, we saw that there were 5 products. And in Hong Kong, the first ETF as part of the cross-listing scheme was listed by CSOP. Turning to the US, TrueShares did a structured outcome ETF. WisdomTree did a bio-revolution ETF. Defiance had a hotel and airlines product. In Europe, we had a space ETF and a sports and betting ETF. And we heard about Horizons ETFs. So the themes are consistent. We've seen year-to-date ESG, thematic ETFs, disruptive technology, and structured outcomes. The other news is the ETF industry has broken through that $9 trillion milestone. More updates to come next week on that. I'd like to thank Syntex Advisors for sponsoring ETF TV. I'd like to thank you for watching this episode. I'd like to thank Steve Hawkins for joining us. If you're interested in prior episodes, go to etftv.net. Thank you.
ETF TV News does not provide investment advice nor recommend products.